Hello and welcome to the Never Ending 80s podcast. I am J.C.Hollywood, and on each episode of this podcast, I will sit down with a special guest and ask them for their favourite 80s song, their favourite 80s album, their favourite 80s movie, and their favourite 80s TV show, as well as their favourite 80s memory. My guest today is Don Elford. He's a friend of the Never Ending 80s. He is the Director of Global Partnerships for ASM, helping bring music and entertainment to the world. And as recently as 2019, he was the Director of Marketing for the Sydney Kings. He was a mover and shaker in the 80s. He may or may not have installed the first ATM in Australia. We will find out as we go on. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Never Ending 80s podcast with Don Elford. Don, hello and welcome to the Never Ending 80s podcast.
Thanks, Jace. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, mate. It's you are our very first guest, so it's good to see you. How have you been?
Look, I've been pretty good. I mean, it's tough times, and it's a bit of a change in how we have to live. But yeah, we're coping. It's good.
Doing okay?
Yeah.
Getting by all right. Let's just, before we jump into all of the categories and stuff, let's just have a little chat about you yourself, because the thing that kind of impresses me off the bat with you, Don, is I jumped on and I had a look at your LinkedIn profile and, saw that you were coming out of high school in the 70s, so you're in that sweet spot for the 80s. And the thing that stands out to me is you kind of obliterate the idea that back in the 80s people just had one job, settled into it, and that was all they did. You're a bit of a Renaissance man, from my understanding. Do you want to run us through some of the jobs you were doing in the 80s?
Yeah, look, I came out of high school actually, playing in a band with my sister. Which was successful before its time, even though, back in those days, the cover band got all the work. I mean, any touring acts that came through regional parts of town, we got the call and we got into open up for them. And then, and there was a plethora of work. I mean, you could almost, you could live off that, really.
Right.
I sort of did that until right through till after school finished. And then purely by accident, ended up in IT, which was a strange place to be. I was a teller
Right.
in a credit union, and they asked the accountant would he look after the new computer system that was coming in, and this was all of '77.
Right.
And he goes, "I'm an accountant. I don't know anything about computers, and I don't want to know anything about computers." So by default, it was the attractiveness of the hours. They said, "Look, can you come in late?" I went, "Tick, yeah, we can't come in late." "Can you stay behind and back up the machine and then knock off at 7:30?" Tick, yeah, that was good. So then I was able to go out and promote bands, have the late night, and come in late and do all those sorts of things. And then one thing led to another, but we're on the cutting edge really of that whole technology. And so that's how come I ended up in IT. So yeah, we were juggling jobs. I had a playing in the band, started a disco business, and then did that right through till probably '89, I think it was.
Beautiful.
And we'd that time we'd built computer bureaus. They didn't even exist at the time. We'd put in automatic teller machines. They didn't exist at the time. So we were, they were rough and ready days, but very, very enjoyable. We worked hard. I mean, you do your day job, you go out and work at night. Your sleep wasn't something that you thought about. You just got up when you had to get up and be going for the next job. So all those times, yes, it was holding down 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah. So I did hear an unsubstantiated rumor that you may have put one of the first ATMs in Australia in.
I don't know whether it was the absolute first, and I've gone back to try and Google it. But I'd never seen one in the country before.
Right.
And it's certainly, this was in Canberra, and we put it into Bonner House in Woden. And it was an old NCR with an old sliding door on it that used to come up, which was a security door.
Beautiful.
But it used to lose communication and had a mind of its own. Comms weren't the very best of those times, and every now and again it would spit out cash for no reason. People in there trying to get the thing up and trying to get the cash out, and we didn't lose too much, but anyway, they were great days. And then we had to maintain them because sometimes they just fall over and die. You'd have to go in and do the old reboot, yeah. Turn it off, turn it on.
Yeah.
And so there was three of us that ran that bureau, but they were terrific days. I mean, that's when the first time, remembering this is prior PCs.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I ever saw a fax machine, which I think might have been around 1980. And I nearly fell off my chair when this paper came out. And I was like, how the hell does that work? Anyway, it was terrific. Yeah.
Speaking of falling off your chair, I did hear a story about the first FPOS machine in Sydney, which was somewhere near Epping, I think. And they were having, it was at a petrol station, and there was a rather heavy-set man working in the station. And he had a chair on the power cord, and the FPOS machine would stop working every time he sat down and would work every time he stood up, and they couldn't work out what the problem was. So I think there were a few teething problems with all of the tech at the times, but thank goodness you did.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite the journey.
It allowed us to do things. Now, you did mention the mobile disco business that you got into. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, disco hit. It came like a wave. Like it came all of a sudden. A lot of people that were, sort of going to when we're, to the where we were playing and dancing and so forth, they were disappearing and ending up in nightclubs, and then it became obvious that sort of there was this whole new sort of setup where people. I mean, back in those days, DJing was very different. I mean, you were basically playing the hits that packed the dance floor, and if people walked off, you would know yourself. If people walk off, you go, we're probably not going to put that one in the set again, so type of thing. So with a mate of mine who was he had a great knowledge, and for all intents and purposes, his nickname was Grassy, and people are going, right, Grassy, yeah, well, okay, so I know where you're going here, Don. But the reality is he was an avid hockey player.
Oh, right.
And field hockey. And every time he would go completely hard, Grassy, and he'd come off covered in grass stains, and that's where he got his nickname from. But he knew he was able to spot a hit from a million miles away. Should have been in A&R, really. That was his forte. He should have been in A&R. But then he, he used to go looking for the things, and we'd discuss it, and we'd pre-order singles way in, and to the point where in some of the residents we had the radio programmers coming down to see what we were playing in Canberra, so that they could get it on the radio. And I do distinctly remember hearing My Sharona for the first time.
Oh yeah,
and just going, oh my God, that's like a cracking song, and we sort of had enough tech to be able to read, and then to go and because there was no files you could listen to or whatever happened to do, you never really heard it until you got the vinyl in your hand.
Yeah, right, of course.
Yeah. So it was interesting, and then of course the 12 inches come out, and then that was you could go and have a beer really while that was playing. So
lock yourself in the DJ booth. Okay, and also let's. I want to get a little bit more into this cover band with your sister. You were playing drums, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I used to play drums and had a microphone really to back announce the songs, but was possibly the worst harmony singer you've ever heard in the world. Possibly. Which usually turned into unison at some point, but. My sister couldn't buy a bad note. She really couldn't. And she could do everything from Linda Ronstadt to Susie Quattro. Smash it out. And we had, the other guys in the band, they're really good musos. And we were out, as I say, every night of the week. And in those days, to describe how we got around, it was basically a a Ford Falcon pulling a cut off half of a pedal band with all the gear in it, which we actually smashed once.
Oh, really?
Rolled it. Yeah, we were going to, I think it was a wedding, and on a Saturday afternoon, a terrible thunderstorm, and we were driving along, and then I remember my old man said, "You be careful out there today because there could be trees on the road." And sure enough, we were traveling along, and there was I saw this massive tree across the road, and there was no way in the world we were going to miss it. So I swerved the car, which then flicked the trailer off the end, sent us down through the fence, and the trailer went down, hit the tree, and just exploded, and all the gear went everywhere. It was amazing, amazing to watch. Maybe we might have been enhanced. No, not really. But but it was that was it. So I had no choice. I had to go to Sunbury that weekend because we didn't have any gear to play.
Right. So the gear was pretty much trashed.
Yeah, it was trashed. We had to. It was all insured, so we got all brand new equipment out. So
oh, nice.
We went from zero to hero with gear.
Not a bad idea. All right, Don, we are going to jump into your first category, which is your favorite 80s song. Now, what's your favorite 80s song?
God, I tell you what, this was tough. This was really tough because there are so many good songs, and I'm not sure, have all the good songs been written? I don't know. But I picked Footloose, which most of my colleagues will go, Footloose? Are you serious? Because they're all like very serious musos and so on.
Right.
Footloose produces an energy on a dance floor and make people do stuff that they would not normally do anywhere else. It's got a cracking guitar riff in it.
Yeah. It
stops and starts. It's all about energy. And even to this day, I mean, I'll still go off the dance floor to Footloose. It's just one of those high energy songs. And I don't know whether there's too many that's been able to reproduce that. Loggins and Messina just were really, really good musos, great songwriters,
Yeah.
Because they wrote some big hits.
Yeah. Well, he got the Academy Award nomination for that one. Didn't win.
Is it? Oh, right.
And, I don't remember which song won that year, but I mean, there was. It's funny because I used to be in a band that I won't name, but they did. They only did bands that had single hits. And
what a great idea!
That's not a bad idea. We used to do Footloose, and after every gig, someone would come up to me and say, "He had more than
Sounds
one
like
hit."
a one-hit wonder to me.
It does, doesn't it? And so we used to try and get Footloose in under the radar there. But I mean, Kenny Loggins was a machine. In fact, I believe they used to refer to him as Mr. Movies or the King of the Movies soundtrack.
Really?
Yeah, because he had I forget the name of the song from Caddyshack.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, and
All Right.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm All Right.
Yeah.
And then, so you have Footloose and also I'm Free, Heaven Helps the Man, also from Footloose. He had a song from Over the Top, and then, of course, Danger Zone from Top Gun.
That's right.
He was pretty good. I'll tell you what I didn't know about him. He won a Grammy for co-writing What a Fool Believes for the Doobie Brothers.
Is that right?
Yeah.
God, you know what? I'd choke him for free if I could, then, because Jesus, when Michael McDonald came into the Doobie Brothers, I went into a bout of depression that was beyond description, because I was such a mad fan of Tom Johnson, who I've met,
right?
Who was the absolute, the start of the Doobie Brothers, to listen to the music and everything, and because I bought all the albums and everything, and then. Then Minute by Minute come out. No, I think there might have been Living on the Fault Line come out.
Right.
From the Doobie Brothers. And I went, what the hell's going on here? That's not right. And of course, now I know the history of how Tom Johnson got sick, and then Michael McDonald and they actually got on, but it was such a different vibe. But now I've grown into it reluctantly, I will say.
Yeah. What a Fool Believes is one of those songs that it started out as a guilty pleasure. It was kind of like, this is so cheesy. And now I actually just unashamedly love it. I think it's a cracking
Well, Michael
song.
McDonald is such a great vocalist. He's
Is
just a cracking vocalist. Yeah.
I've
certainly got a signature voice.
I've had a try at What a Fool Believes a couple of times, and it is a hard song. It's a very hard song. I think
you won't get any competition from the harmony singer here anyway. That's for sure.
I think Footloose is a great choice. You're absolutely right. It's whenever we play it, and we've only recently added it. Actually, we tried to keep it off the set list for as long as possible, but it's irresistible. And after we did the film run with Footloose, it was really it really has its.
It's funny about that song. For some reason, it reminds me of someone with a chainsaw that just keeps revving it and revving it and revving it. You're going to go, what's going to happen here?
Yeah,
but it's such a really strong song.
Yeah,
and condensed into that whole energy thing, and then bang, it's over.
Yeah. Unless you're watching the movie where it's in about 17 times because they want to get their money's worth out of it.
Well, that movie had a remake, and the remake was amazingly good.
I did not see that. I didn't see the remake.
Yeah. No, there's the Footloose too, and it, in my book, it's a remake. But I accidentally was watching it. It came up on a plane, and I went, I'll have a look at this just to test it out. And I was amazed how good it was. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was. I did some reading actually, and Kenny Loggins wrote the song as a favor to the guy who'd written the screenplay because he was a friend of his. And
wow.
Yeah, Kenny said he
Friends
read the screenplay and went, I don't know if it's not War and Peace that we're dealing with here, but I'll give it a shot. And I think it was. I mean, it seems that in no small part I think the song was responsible in a way for getting the film made, and it's not hard to see why. That's such an infectious melody that I think if you listen to that song and you read that screenplay at the same time, you're like, yeah, I can see this working. I can see this being a really exciting film. Which is, I think,
Kevin Bacon was in that, right? Yeah,
he was. Yeah.
Man, he is an amazing actor.
He's an incredible actor, as evidenced by his.
Do you know he's a muso?
I did not know that.
Yeah. I've heard him on BBC. He sort of does this sort of blues thing. He even goes out and tours and does it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when we were doing the film, I was putting some trivia together, and I think it was Rob Lowe was pretty high up for the role. He was one of the favourites, and he blew out his knee in the dance audition. And
see, there is a God.
Yeah. And one final bit of trivia that I actually picked up while I was doing a bit of research: the whole "Jack Get Back" and "Please Louise" section of the song. I didn't know this. That's a bit of a riff on Paul Simon's 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. With the whole,
I did not know that.
No, yes, the whole "Step Out the Back, Jack, make a new plan, Stan."
Yeah,
Kenny was going, I'd like to write something like that, and so he just wrote that into Footloose. So there you go. Kenny Loggins, the great stealer.
Yeah. All power to you, Kenny, I say.
That's fabulous. All right, we are going to now take a look at your second selection, which is your favourite 80s album. Now, I'm thinking you've run a mobile disco. You're on the cutting edge of some of the great dance hits. I'm thinking there's going to be a nice disco beat, kind of synth-heavy type of album here. So, Don Elford, please tell me your favourite 80s album.
Yeah, look, this was a combination of a whole, like a sum of all the parts, really. And it really came around about because at the time there was a fairly severe drought around.
Right.
And we were in regional New South Wales. And then this album came out and completely stood me on my head. Knew of the artist, but didn't really rate him. Thought it was okay, but that album was Scarecrow by John Cougar Mellencamp. And I mean, you know, ROCK in the USA, but the whole sentiment of Scarecrow was out of his, I suppose, his association with Willie Nelson. Of course, they still raised money for the farmers in the US.
Right.
And then we went and saw Mellencamp on the back of that album at the Sydney Entertainment Centre. We drove down to Sydney and went and saw it, and it was an unbelievably good show. High energy, and he was up there. But I mean, and I've worked with Mellencamp since. But yeah, and on different tours, he came through with Sheryl Crow on a double bill at one stage, and then he's had a lot of music out, but he suffers badly from tinnitus.
Oh, really?
Ears. Yeah, that whole thing, and it's debilitating for him.
Right.
And it just makes him a cranky man sometimes.
Right.
And I've got to sympathise with him because my wife suffers from tinnitus as well.
Right.
And it's a horrible thing to have when it comes on, you know, and it's the loudest thing you can hear in the room. It is not good. But that, going back to that album, you know, Rain on the Scarecrow, you know, that whole part, and then he had so many, Cherry Bomb. I mean, they all just were able to capture, and you could visualize what was going on in every song. In fact, I don't know whether Cherry Bomb made that album. It might have been a single.
The Cherry Bomb is, it's not on the album, but
yeah, right.
Yeah,
but they dropped at the time.
It's an interesting thing with John Mellencamp. I believe he was still John Cougar Mellencamp at the time of Scarecrow.
Well, he was John Cougar to start with, yeah.
Yeah. So it's such an interesting thing because when you listen to his albums or you listen to, you know, any of his songs, his voice is so characteristic of the 80s. It captures, it was pervasive in the 80s. And yet today he's kind of just remembered for Jack and Diane, and then, you know, you'll hear a song and you'll go, who is this? Oh, it's John Mellencamp. And then you'll hear another song and go, oh, it's John Mellencamp. Why do you think it is that he hasn't? He's not sort of one of those immediate artists that are thought of when people think of the 80s. He's not sort of seen in the same caliber, say, as, you know, Freddie Mercury or even Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, look, Mellencamp, you know, sort of was a great performer. He worked hard and he played hard, you know, and he had some major issues with cocaine and so forth, and that's well documented.
Yeah.
But he got through all that. But if you want to get to the heart of the guy, there's a tremendous doco that he made, which is where he tells his life story while he plays the live concert.
Oh, great.
In voiceover.
Great.
And that was another one that came out of the blue. I didn't even see that. And I sat there and it completely riveted to me. And he goes back into his relationship with his father, and he goes back into, you know, all the troubles he had along the way. And, you know, and he's had some great musos. Drummer Kenny Aronoff was playing with him, and it's funny, I heard a podcast with Kenny where he's referencing, he goes, well, I really had to go and find someone to play with because, you know, playing with John just got a bit too hard.
Right.
So and he ended up in John Fogerty's band.
Right, yeah.
So but I don't know, Mellencamp was always there. Scarecrow was such a massive album, and then he had Pink Houses. Did that come after that? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I know that Scarecrow was his eighth studio album, which surprised me. Yeah. But you know, a great talent. Always had a really strong band. I can't even recall the guitar player's name that was with him for years. Probably still is. You know, but he was just there, and I mean, watching that guy go round as a backup to Mellencamp, you know, he was able to do anything. Remember he used to pull the big splits on the floor? Yeah, yeah.
He used to jump a mile and come down like on a full splits. It was amazing. But
Yeah.
he doesn't do that anymore, of course. But
No.
from all the reviews I read, he still does a pretty solid show.
Yeah,
Like
right.
as in, and he's found his own space, and he seems to be at peace with himself. So more power to him.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
he's I think it's great. It was I have been listening. I did have a bit of a listen to it, and it's got so much of that 80s snare going on. It's absolutely fabulous.
Oh yeah.
Have you got any sort of standout favorite tracks from there?
Yeah,
The one?
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Justice and Independence is my favorite track off that album.
I have that down as mine as well. It's an amazing song. What a great tune.
I mean, it could almost have been a Footloose with that brass that they bring in, the
Yeah.
drum solo, all that sort of thing. That just makes me want to, I don't know, do cartwheels or, backflips or something. It's just terrific. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great song. It goes so many places as well. It certainly doesn't let up. It starts and you think, oh yeah, and then it's building and it's building. It's a great track. Yeah.
And then it breaks down and then the drum brings it back in, boom, 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 and away you go again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's full I'm no percussionist, so, well, you'd probably know. Is it like a tom solo in there or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Amazing.
double toms, but I've got a kit at home and an electric kit, and I sit onto that. People say, how often, do you play much anymore? And I'm going, yeah, most days. You played with anyone famous? Yeah, like last night was the Rolling Stones. I played with them too. I love playing along to live albums.
Yeah.
And it sort of just sits you in the pocket, and that, I was never the greatest drummer in the world, but I had a bit of a clock mentality, so it was good.
That's great. That's great. I'll tell you one song from the album that was a favourite of mine growing up was Rumble Seat, which I had a look.
Jesus, I nearly choked on my coffee there. What a great song.
It's a great song, and it sort of peaked at like 26 on the Australian charts or something like that. But the thing about it was I didn't know the name of the song because most of my favourite songs growing up, I had two cassettes that I had made sort of once a year over the Easter weekend. I grew up in WA, and 96 FM would do 96 hours commercial free.
Yeah.
And so
great station, 96 FM. Yeah.
Oh, it was beautiful. And we'd just sit there, you'd sit there with the radio playing in the cassette, and you'd, start recording when a song came on, that you loved, or if you thought you might like it. And so, a lot of my favorite songs are like Rumble Seat, like not the biggest hits, but they were the biggest hits to me, and Midnight Blue and things like that. But I didn't know the song was called Rumble Seat, and so I didn't know what he was saying in the chorus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, I know just what it's like to be a big time writer.
I had. It took me ages because there was no internet or anything to speak of.
Right.
I didn't know what a Rumble Seat was.
Right. Yeah, I don't really now.
I don't, a Rumble Seat. I think it's right. Well, no one else is going to. No one here to question me, really.
Yes,
the Rumble Seat. You remember the car that had the. It was like a boot, and you used to sit out the back, and you used to sit in the Rumble Seat.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, remember it was like a convertible, and you come out the back, and that was the Rumble Seat. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah, right. Davey Rocket has a type of Rumble Seat in the band, which is this will be fun for any ever-ending 80s fans listening, where he whenever I think it's hooked up to his kick, whenever he hits the kick, his seat vibrates. Not in a particular.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just to get him really feeling the flow.
Yeah, right. Always been a bit of a strange guy, hasn't he, really?
He's a very strange guy, is the old Rocket.
Good drummer, that.
He's a very good drummer. The interesting thing about Scarecrow, it reached number 2 on the US Billboard charts. Do you know what kept it out of the number 1 spot? I'll give you a clue. It was a soundtrack.
Really?
Yeah.
Soundtrack.
I'll give you another clue. It's a soundtrack to a TV show. Kept it out of the number one spot.
No, I'm out.
Miami Vice. The soundtrack to Miami Vice kept Scarecrow out of the number one spot on the Billboard charts.
Miami Vice, was that Don Johnson?
Yeah. And Michael Mann.
Don Johnson. Yeah, right.
Yeah, created by Michael Mann.
Yeah, that's right. The suits and the 5 o'clock shadow.
Yep. Started a whole thing about not shaving.
I really watched that show. I don't think I ever really watched that show.
I never really got into it myself, but I have been thinking about getting back into it because it's, as I say, it's created by Michael Mann, who then, obviously went on to do movies like Heat and stuff like that. And he also did the Miami Vice movie recently. But apparently, it's pretty solid writing for the TV show there. So there you go.
Okay,
there you go. There's about Scarecrow for you.
Geez, I'll tell you what, we're taking we're uncovering some trivia today. That's great.
We sure are. The other song you mentioned, of course, ROCK in the USA. We had finally, we'd worked it into the set, and we were about to do it at our 80s versus 2000s show. Yeah. And suddenly lockdown happened, and we still haven't managed to do our 80s versus 2000s show. But if you'd like to hear us do ROCK in the USA, make sure you come along when we're back doing shows again, which hopefully will happen very soon. Let's move on to the next.
I think that's a good solid 3/4, isn't it?
Yeah.
ROCK?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
DAG?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It might be, DAE.
No, it's EAD. It's EAD.
EAD?
Yeah, it's certainly EAD when we play it because it's going with a few other songs going with EAD. But I've said too much. Let's move on to the next category, which is your best 80s movie.
Oh, yeah. I remember distinctly. I don't know. I think I went to the video store and Video Easy.
Beautiful.
And was looking for something to watch, and that caught my eye. I had no idea what it was. And it was. I remember sitting there watching it, and I was never been moved so much by a movie. Like, it took me through a whole host of emotions where you were just riveted to the point where it was a movie that I played and actually put it on and played it again.
Really?
And watched it right through again. And that movie was The Dresser. And it was the original movie with Albert Finney in it.
Right.
And Tom Courtenay. And Albert Finney, the performance he gives in that movie is probably one of the strongest performances that I've really seen. I think it's just he just got into it. I don't know where he went or what he did. And there's been a remake since of that movie.
Yeah.
But it's I don't think it's a patch on the first version.
Right.
It's still a fine performance, and it's still got all the sentiment of what it's an incredible story, and really based around theatre and actors and so forth, and Shakespeare and all that sort of stuff. But oh man, that movie just completely got right into my emotions, and I can sit down any day and watch it again.
Right. Yeah. 1983 film, was it? I think it was 1983.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. I have not seen it, and you sent through that this was your pick, and I went and did some research, and it's fascinating. Do you want to I don't know if we need to give a spoilers warning for a film that's nearly 40 years old, but do you want to talk us through basically what the film's about?
Yeah, look, it's really about the relationship of a Shakespearean actor that he has with his dresser who gets him ready for performance, and the conversation that goes round. And the actor's got a number of issues. The dresser pretty much bites his tongue and goes, but he makes the proper comment. Great listener, and takes you through. And so there's a lot of storytelling in it. There's a little bit of Shakespeare performance in it that, and we won't go into the spoiler of how it ends. That takes you through. It's just an absolute journey. And for something that is really not action based, but I mean, the makeup, the way that it was shot, certainly the words that were written for that script are amazing, and it just sticks with me. I keep going back to it all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of it available online. Short of you can of course hire it. But I did watch a couple of clips on YouTube, and it looks very powerful. Some good humor as well. It's yeah. It's
typical British type drama. I'm a massive fan of British drama.
Right.
They do drama like nobody else, and I mean, I devour a lot of content out of the BBC and ITV and all those Channel 4 and so forth over there. But they just have a different way of approaching the whole, sort of filmmaking and series making. I'm watching a thing called Top Boy at the moment, which is about sort of in London and the drug culture within East London, and I know it exists, but geez, when you see it firsthand, and amazingly, that particular movie written by an Irishman, who a white Irish Catholic guy that got tied up with in the whole IRA debacle. So
right,
but anyway, I'm watching that at the moment, so I'm nearly finished that. It's pretty damn good. It's on Netflix.
That sounds great. Yeah, I had a look. So The Dresser on Rotten Tomatoes, its critic review is 100%, 100% positive.
Is that right?
Yeah, and its audience review is 87%. So it's a pretty well reviewed film. Roger Ebert gave it 4 out of 4 stars, and he said, this is the best sort of drama, fascinating us on the surface with colour and humour and esoteric detail, then revealing the truth underneath. It got 5 Academy Award nominations, including both actors for Best Actor, Tom Courtenay and Albert Finney. And I think this was probably one of those early cases of them splitting the vote so somebody else won it, because...
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think... who was it? Was it Jack? It was somebody for Tender Mercies, I think. Won it, or Terms of Endearment. One of them. But yeah,
God, that performance was well worth an Academy Award. Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't win any of its Academy Award nominations. It was nominated for Best Film, or Best Picture, Best Director, the 2 noms for Best Actor, as I said, and it was also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, which the reason I think it was, it is so good. Watching it, the dialogue is so well written, is because it was adapted by the writer, the playwright, who from his 1980 play. So he adapted it for the screen.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And it didn't win any Academy Awards.
Didn't win any Academy Awards. It won a few Golden Globes and BAFTAs, but the Academy Awards gave it enough of a look to say, you gave it a shot, but not enough to give them...
Although to be fair, in 1983, I mean, for a film that wasn't made in the US, to get an Academy Award would have been a real feat.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, and virtually unknown actors too, I suppose. Not high profile at the time.
It's truly a... It sounds like it's a fascinating film, so I will definitely be checking it out. I'll tell you one film that it's only happened to me once, where I've watched a film on video and immediately rewound it and watched it again, and that was Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, because I was watching that with some friends, and I didn't want to cry in front of them, so I waited until they went home, put the film back on, and then cried like a baby.
That's a very, very powerful movie.
Yeah. Still gets me. Watched it the other day, and I was off again. So yeah. Want to make me cry?
Well, that's
Make
all
me
right.
Field of Dreams.
Yeah, that's great. That's terrific. Yeah.
Now let's move on to our next category, which is your favorite 1980s TV show.
Yeah. I didn't have to think about. Well, there was a lot to choose from. You know, I mean,
It was a good time.
there was I went through all the possible candidates and struggled because there were so many good ones. And during the 80s, I was traveling to the US quite a bit. So, you know, sort of, it was difficult. And I was tempted to go with the US show. And then I realized, you know, sort of what was controlling our lives at the time. And that was, in fact, Countdown.
Right.
Countdown as a show has never been repeated, probably won't ever be repeated. It was scheduled viewing. I mean, the country stopped at 6 p.m. on a Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what was on, people were glued to the TV, and it created so many Australian artists. And I mean, and it almost never happened. I mean, you've probably seen the miniseries and so forth that came out, but the influence that it had on everything, radio, people, songs, it was amazing. And what I liked about it more than anything else is that you took someone who really shouldn't have been a host, because in a lot of on many occasions the host ended up being, you know, someone from a band at the time. You know,
Right.
It was, you know, Darryl Braithwaite, or it was someone, and of course they just bumbled through as much as Molly bumbled through his bit. And so it was like organized chaos. And you know, shot out of Melbourne, but boy, oh boy, I mean, I'll tell you how powerful it was. If we went somewhere and we were playing on a Sunday night and you were setting up, Countdown would come on in the venue,
Right.
and they would stop you from setting up.
Really?
Right, while people sat there and watched what was on.
Yeah, right.
That's how strong it could have been. Yeah, you know, in some cases, but you know, everyone. There's a whole host of things that people used to flock to the TV for. I mean, you know, there was Disneyland. You know, everyone knew that was on. You know, there was, you know, you just had appointment times. But one of the strongest was certainly Countdown, and you know what it did, and broke so many acts. I mean, you know, Molly was certainly instrumental in breaking ABBA in this country because of Countdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think he just had he was one of those sort of I won't say once in a generation or once in a lifetime, but he was certainly one of those people that just had a deeper understanding of what was a hit or what was going to be good music, because his success ratio was pretty amazing. Like, I mean, he wasn't really ever trying to push something that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, look, he certainly he had an ear for a good tune.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. He certainly had a passion, because I don't know where he went to London prior to that whole thing, and you know was hung around that whole Beatles setup, and even appears in a film clip. I think it might have been Give Peace a Chance or something. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
And then he came back here. But what got him across the line before anything else was he couldn't live without music.
Yeah.
It was his passion.
Yeah.
Right. There was not, if he couldn't do music, he couldn't do anything. He was probably going to be homeless.
Right.
Because he didn't care. That's how driven he was with the whole thing. And then, you know, it was again a sum of all the parts. You know, he got in with the ABC, that then, you know, sort of took a punt, and you know, one thing led to another. And he wasn't the original host. The original host of Countdown was actually Grant Goldman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think he did the first introduction, and Grant's no longer with us, but he passed away couple of years back, but you know, a tremendous voice and a lovely guy. But I think he did the very first episode of it, and Molly did a piece in it, and then you know, so then it went from there. So there's a little bit of trivia. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, I didn't actually have too much trivia because I didn't do too much research on Countdown because you know it stands.
It's fairly well documented, you know.
Yeah,
and I view it now play, you know, sort of on demand. There, you can go back and watch the episodes of them, so it's readily available. But unfortunately, a lot of the tapes got destroyed.
Right.
I think it might have been they actually got taped over.
Right. Yeah.
I think was the real thing. So what's left is left, and a lot of the great moments from Countdown have been lost forever.
Yeah.
But they walk through with a whole host of careers, and you know, and everything. It's funny to go back and watch, and you see the first performances by Little River Band, and you know, and everyone's going, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And it was already a hit in the US.
Yeah.
So Molly jumped on that because it had already taken off in the US. And then sort of, and you see some of the acts, you know, My Sex and all those sorts of acts, and you know, Billy Idol coming out for the first time, and Iggy Pop being absent on the chairman, you know, and just completely destroying the set was their moments in time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not sure that we'll ever see anything of its like again, because it was so of the moment. I don't think it is replicable.
Look, who knows? I mean, we're in a state moment with COVID and everything. I don't know. I think the world's going to behave differently anyway. As we come back, I think people will probably change up. There'll be opportunities, I think, that'll be there for musicians. There'll be opportunities that'll be there for actors that weren't there before. The sentiment will change. I think, you know, what we had before, I think, is probably what we had before.
Yep.
And what we had after COVID is what we're going to have after COVID. I think it's going to be a little bit, you know, it certainly can't be the same. You know, people's values, you know, at the very root of, you know, of the human being will probably change, you know, and, you know, we'll get through this in some way, shape or form. You won't get any timeline off me. I don't know when. I wish we knew, but every time. But I can't wait to get back to a never-ending 80s gig. I mean, you guys do a terrific job, an absolutely terrific job. And I tell you what, it's the medicine that the country needs, you know, and people going out and recalling moments in time, and you know, that's life. That's how it works, you know. You know, and I've been to a couple of shows where you guys have done full houses, and I mean, it goes off like a frog in a sock. It's it's just really, really, really good stuff. So well done. I think it's a great it's a great concept of it, and you do bring back a lot of memories for people, so they get to relive them. So good on you.
Oh, thank you very much, Don. That is that was a paid promotion by Don Elford for the Never Ending 80.
It was a paid promotion, then the money's shit.
Oh, all right, let's run into your last category, or our last category, which is your favorite 80s memory. Now, I've called it your favorite 80s memory, but really it's just anything from the 80s, something that you want to bring to attention, or something that's a personal favorite memory of yours. You sent me through a few of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I'm just trying to think what I wrote down now. Give me a hint.
Oh, I can tell you there's one that really interested me, which was that you were in San Francisco in 1989 for the
my God, how could I forget that? Yeah, so in 89, I had to go over to San Francisco because that was sort of the hub for IT at the time.
Right.
And I was getting towards the end of my career in IT because it was changing so quickly. And they were talking about non-stop computers and a whole host of new operating systems that were coming out. Noises were being made about, internet and all those sorts of things. And so we really went over to get a hold on it, and we didn't have any choice with the timing because we were already booked ready to go. Just prior to us going, the big earthquake hit San Francisco.
Right.
And in November '89, I think it was. And we were really committed. We were traveling around. We were going to Chicago. We were going to Toronto. We were going to New York. We were traveling to many places and many states and looking at different technology. So we arrived after all the damage had been done in San Francisco, and I remember driving from the airport and seeing the first scenes of the freeways that had collapsed.
Yeah.
And knowing what the outcome of all that was and so forth. And all I wanted to do was to turn around and go back to the airport and go home.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be there, so forth. I had a couple of colleagues with me. One was okay with it and was talking about it, but I think it was about the second night we were there,
Right.
and we'd been out to Pleasanton in San Francisco to look at this installation, and we came back and we're in a high-rise hotel down around Union Square there,
Mm-hmm.
and there were after tremors
Right.
around about 7:00 in the morning, and the bed I was in virtually moved from one side of the room to the other.
Wow.
And you go, your mind goes, and it's so quick, but your mind goes, this could be it. This could be the end of it. It could be over. And I didn't even have time to think about doorways or anything. I just sat there completely frozen,
Yeah.
waiting for whatever was going to happen. And then that night, it freaked the colleagues out so much. We jumped on a plane that afternoon and flew to Chicago.
Great.
We're out there.
But yeah, that makes sense.
We blew out, I think, 2 meetings and everything, and then headed to Chicago. So that was absolutely, that was a big moment for me because you think about it and you go, wow, no notice, could have been all over Red Rover. I think we were like on the 31st floor of a hotel.
Right.
So there was no chance of getting out.
Yeah. Gee, that's rough.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
It's an interesting. I had a vague recollection of it happening, but didn't really know much of the details. It was 6.9 magnitude earthquake that hit. The thing that I found interesting, it happened at like 6:00 at night, and it was Game 3 of the World Series was about to take place when it happened. And the World Series was being held in San Francisco, and the teams that
at
were
Candlestick
playing,
Park.
Yeah, and the teams that were playing were the San Francisco Giants versus the Oakland A's. So they were both sort of California-based teams. They were in it was the third game of the World Series, and one of the things that they said was that the game was due to start, I believe, at about 6:00 or something like that. And as a result, so many people were already at the stadium to see the game, or they were at home to watch the game, that it wasn't, peak hour was much less at the time that the quake hit. The lives lost or injured would have been catastrophically higher, but for the fact that the World Series was going on. So in many respects, the World Series helped save a bunch of lives there.
It's funny now that you mention it. When we were in San Francisco, we actually went to a game at Candlestick Park as a guest of somebody.
Right.
After the event to watch it, and I can't remember for the life of me who played, but I do remember there weren't many people at that game.
Right.
So I don't know what the game was, but we went to a baseball game because someone invited us along, and there hadn't been the tremor at that point. So yeah. So
I mean, not exactly a favourite memory, but certainly a notable one.
Yeah, no, absolutely notable. It was, you just go, it's one of those moments when you go, this could have been it. I mean, there's been a couple of times in my life when I thought, how the hell did I survive that? But that was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness you did. We're very glad I won't go into
the other ones, but but yeah, it's one of those things where you just go, whoa, thank God, that nothing worse happened. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Don. Well, before we leave off, this is a bit of a question without notice. Is there anything, a band, movie, you've already mentioned Top Boy as the TV show, anything from the current day that you want to bring people's attention to? Something they should be listening to or watching, or somewhere they should be heading?
Wow. Well, I mean, with lockdown, we're watching a lot of TV, right? So there's because of my background in IT, I've been watching *Halt and Catch Fire*, which is about, have you seen that?
I've not seen it. I've got it in my to-watch list. Yeah,
so that's really about the first PC that was cloned, but the development of characters in that is absolutely amazing. And it's out of the US. But when you read the backstory of the guys that made that, it was such a tough thing to make because they couldn't find IBM mainframes, for example, so they had to build them. They couldn't find modems from the day, and they had to replicate them and all that. So that was about $2 to $4 million an episode, and they made 40 of them, I think.
Good Lord.
But it was a real sleeper, that one. So and that was out. Gosh, there's been a lot of things that have had an impact on me. As I say, BBC drama tends to really get me each time. You get a good plot, you get a good, line of duty and stuff like that is just, it's hard to replicate that. But and the good thing, what I do like? I do like that when you watch a show, you can type into Google shows like *Halt and Catch Fire*,
right,
and it will give you other ones or suggestions. And this is how Google Chrome works. See, the old IT keeps coming out of me. When you click on it, it tells you the platform it's on.
Yes.
So you don't have to go chasing it. So when you watch something, and I use IMDb to keep a list of everything that I want to watch, and what was the other one that I really, really enjoyed? There was *Killing Eve*.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievably well done. But I can't think of the other one now. Just give me the lyrics. Anyway. So I might be able to find it quickly. *Why Women Kill*.
*Why Women Kill*.
And it's actually on SBS.
There you go. I'm a little.
Oh, yeah. That'll. It's just very, very funny, clever, well written. And there's a second series just out now. And then the other one that really got me was a drama set around the Lakes District called *The A Word*.
Oh yeah.
About a young kid that's got autism and how the parents didn't want to own up to it. But oh my God, the soundtrack out of that.
All right.
So good, so good. Yeah.
All right, Don, I'll quickly recap with you. So your favorite 80s song was Footloose. Your favorite 80s album was Scarecrow by John Cougar Mellencamp. Favorite 80s movie was The Dresser. Your favorite 80s TV show was Countdown, and your 80s memory was the 1989 San Francisco earthquake. Sounds like a good list?
Yeah, that's a big list.
That's a very big list.
And one I'm entirely happy with.
That is awesome. Don, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you for helping me break the seal on this Never Ending 80s podcast. And we hope to catch up with you again soon. So stay safe.
Yeah.
We'll catch up with you soon, mate.
Good on you, Jason. Thanks very much. And good luck with the Never Ending 80s. It's a great stuff that you do.
Thank you, mate.
Righto. Cheers now.
Cheers, mate. That's going to do it for this first episode of the Never Ending 80s podcast. If you have any questions or comments, or maybe you'd like to send us your own favourite 80s song, album, movie, TV show, and memory list, you can contact us at any80spodcast@gmail.com. Until then, we want to thank Don Elford for joining us. Join me next time when another special guest will take us through their favourite memories of the 80s. I'm J.C.Hollywood. I'll see you then. This episode of the Never Ending 80s podcast is brought to you by Sleeshman Drum Co. Pioneering sound innovation since 1971, the Sleeshman Drum Company are the inventors of the modern-day twin double bass pedal, a revolutionary product making life easier for drummers everywhere. They also pioneered the free-floating acoustic drum. Now, if like me, you have no idea what that means, it's a drum tuning system that doesn't bolt onto the drum's shell, i.e. the wooden bit that makes the drum sound good. This results in a great sounding drum with more tone than ever before. Created in Australia and still manufactured in Australia, Sleeshman drums are exported around the globe to some of the world's best drummers, including Queen's own Roger Taylor. They're even the kit of choice for the Never Ending 80s own Davey Rocket. So if you are in the market for a new kit, make sure it's a Sleeshman.